How to become a genius. 10 tips from Nikola Tesla. I'm Cecilia Elise Wallin from Inventicity, the channel where we combine inventiveness and felicity. And since this channel is so much about inventiveness, I think it's appropriate to make a video about Nikola Tesla and his inventiveness. So Nikola Tesla, he wasn't just a great inventor, he was also a great writer, and he has written about how he came up with his inventions. He said that it was through thinking rather than from experimentation. So he used his skills in mathematics and engineering, and he thought through very deliberately his ideas, and then when he got to experiment he knew that he would succeed. And Nikola Tesla was also a very generous person. Based on the knowledge of how he could have succeeded even better, he gave advice. So here are the 10 tips on how to become a genius from Nikola Tesla. 1. Cultivate your intuitive, inventive ideas.
Our first endeavors are purely instinctive, promptings of an imagination vivid and undisciplined. As we grow older, reason asserts itself and we become more and more systematic and designing. But those early impulses, though not immediately productive, are of the greatest moment and may shape our very destinies. Indeed, I feel now that had I understood and cultivated instead of suppressing them, I would have added substantial value to my bequest to the world. But not until I had attained manhood did I realize that I was an inventor.
When misunderstood, find compensation in the pleasing exercises of your powers and your knowledge.
The progressive development of man is vitally dependent on invention. It is the most important product of his creative brain. Its ultimate purpose is the complete mastery of mind over the material world, the harnessing of the forces of nature to human needs. This is the difficult task of the inventor who is often misunderstood and unrewarded. But he finds ample compensation in the pleasing exercises of his powers, and in the knowledge of being one of that exceptionally privileged class without whom the race would have long ago perished in the bitter struggle against pitiless elements.
Devote a lot of time to thinking.
I am credited with being one of the hardest workers, and perhaps I am, if thought is the equivalent of labor, for I have devoted to it almost all of my waking hours. But if work is interpreted to be a definite performance in a specified time according to a rigid rule, then I may be the worst of idlers. Every effort under compulsion demands a sacrifice of life energy. I never paid such a price. On the contrary, I have thrived on my thoughts.
Daydream.
And so I began to travel, of course, in my mind. Every night, and sometimes during the day, when alone, I would start on my journeys, see new places, cities, and countries, live there, meet people, and make friendships and acquaintances, and, however unbelievable, it is a fact that they were just as dear to me as those in actual life, and not a bit less intense in their manifestations. This I did constantly until I was about 17, when my thoughts turned seriously to invention. Then I observed to my delight that I could visualize with the greatest facility. I needed no models, drawings, or experiments. I could picture them all as real in my mind. Thus, I have been led unconsciously to evolve what I consider a new method of materializing inventive concepts and ideas, which is radically opposite to the purely experimental and is, in my opinion, ever so much more expeditious and efficient.
Develop your inventions carefully in your mind.
My method is different. I do not rush into actual work. When I get an idea, I start at once building it up in my imagination. I change the construction, make improvements, and operate the device in my mind. It is absolutely immaterial to me whether I run my turbine in thought or test it in my shop.
Rely on tested and proven methods.
Engineering, electrical and mechanical, is positive in results. There is scarcely a subject that cannot be mathematically treated and the effects calculated or the results determined beforehand from the available theoretical and practical data.
Read good and inspiring books.
Of all things, I liked books the best. My father had a large library, and whenever I could manage, I tried to satisfy my passion for reading.
Practice self-control.
On one occasion, I came across a novel entitled Abafi, the Son of Abba, a Serbian translation of a well-known Hungarian writer, Josica. This work somehow awakened my dormant powers of will, and I began to practice self-control.
Derive satisfaction from sacrifice.
At first my resolutions faded like snow in April, but in a little while I conquered my weakness, and I felt pleasure I never knew before, that of doing as I willed. In the course of time, this vigorous mental exercise became second nature. At the outset, my wishes had to be subdued, but gradually desire and will grew to be identical.
Be self-aware.
The pressure of occupation and the incessant stream of impressions pouring into our consciousness through all the gateways of knowledge make modern existence hazardous in many ways. Most persons are so absorbed in the contemplation of the outside world that they are wholly oblivious to what is passing on within themselves. The premature death of millions is primarily traceable to this cause. Even among those who exercise care, it is a common mistake to avoid imaginary and ignore the real dangers. And what is true of an individual also applies, more or less, to a people as a whole.